The annual Martinez family reunion was held every summer at Riverside Park, and it followed the same predictable pattern every year. My cousins would arrive in their newest cars, wearing designer clothes and talking loudly about their latest promotions, vacation homes, and investment portfolios. My aunts and uncles would spend the afternoon comparing their children's achievements like they were trading baseball cards. And Uncle Bob would inevitably find a moment to remind everyone that I was the family's greatest disappointment. This year promised to be no different. I pulled into the parking lot in my 10-year-old Honda Civic, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt that had seen better days. Through the windshield, I could see the familiar tableau of success theater that defined these gatherings. My cousin Derek showing off his new Porsche, Aunt Carmen displaying her latest jewelry acquisitions, and Uncle Bob holding court near the picnic tables with his usual collection of business success stories. Uncle Bob was my father's older brother and the self-appointed patriarch of the Martinez family since Dad's death 5 years earlier. He owned a small but profitable construction company, drove a truck that cost more than most people's annual salaries, and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone that he'd made something of himself, despite growing up poor. More importantly, he'd taken it upon himself to publicly evaluate the life choices of every family member, especially those he deemed insufficiently successful. That would be me. I grabbed the cooler of sandwiches I'd prepared for the potluck. Simple turkey and cheese on homemade bread, nothing fancy, and walked toward the family gathering with the resigned determination of someone approaching a dental procedure. The conversations quieted as I approached, not out of respect, but because my arrival signaled the beginning of the afternoon's entertainment. Uncle Bob's annual performance of What's Wrong with Miguel. Well, well, Uncle Bob announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Look who decided to grace us with his presence. It's our little Miguel, still living the dream in that tiny apartment. The assembled family members turned to look at me with expressions ranging from pity to barely concealed amusement. Over the years, I'd become the cautionary tale they used to motivate their own children. The example of what happened when you didn't apply yourself properly or make smart career choices. Hi, Uncle Bob, I said, setting down my cooler and accepting his bone-crushing handshake. Good to see you. Is it, though? He asked with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Because last I heard you were still working at that clinic downtown making what, 40,000 a year? Living paycheck to paycheck. The family gathering had formed a loose circle around us, anticipating the familiar routine. Uncle Bob performed this same comedy show every year, and they'd all heard the material before, but it never seemed to get old for them. Something like that, I said noncommittally. See, that's what I don't understand, Uncle Bob continued, warming to his theme. You're 32 years old, Miguel. Most men your age have established careers, families, property. They've built something meaningful with their lives. He gestured broadly at the assembled relatives. Look at Derek, he's got his own law practice, a house in Westfield, 2 kids in private school. Carmen's daughter just made partner at her accounting firm. Even little Sophia has her own marketing business now. Sophia, my 28-year-old cousin, beamed with pride at being included in Uncle Bob's success showcase. She'd started a small social media marketing company that handled local restaurants and retail shops. Respectable work that generated enough income to support her lifestyle and impress the family. But you, Uncle Bob said, pointing at me like a prosecutor addressing a jury, you're still living like a college student. Tiny apartment, old car, working for someone else instead of building your own future. What happened, Miguel? Where did we go wrong with you? The question hung in the air like smoke from a barbecue grill. This was the annual moment when Uncle Bob invited the entire family to diagnose my life's failures and offer helpful suggestions for improvement. Previous years had featured discussions of my poor financial planning, my lack of ambition, my failure to find an appropriate wife, and my general inability to achieve the kind of conventional success the Martinez family valued. What they didn't know, what none of them had ever bothered to ask about, was exactly what I did at that clinic downtown, or why someone with my qualifications might choose to work there instead of pursuing more obviously lucrative opportunities. I'm comfortable with my choices, I said simply. Comfortable, Uncle Bob repeated with a laugh. That's exactly the problem right there. Comfortable is the enemy of success. You can't build wealth by being comfortable. You can't create a legacy by accepting mediocrity. Derek, my lawyer cousin, decided to join the conversation. Uncle Bob's right, Miguel. I mean, no judgment, but don't you want more out of life? Better car, bigger place, financial security. Some people are just wired differently, added Aunt Carmen with the kind of sympathetic tone usually reserved for discussing terminal illnesses. Not everyone has the drive to succeed in business. It's not about drive, Uncle Bob corrected. It's about making smart choices. Miguel here has spent the last decade making poor choices, and now he's stuck in a dead-end situation. I listened to this familiar analysis of my life's trajectory while watching a black sedan pull into the parking lot. The car was expensive but understated, the kind of vehicle driven by people who had money but didn't feel the need to announce it. It parked near my Honda and I recognized the driver immediately. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, Chief of Surgery at Metropolitan General Hospital and Director of the Trauma Surgery Residency Program. She was also my boss, though that wasn't quite the right word for our professional relationship. As one of the most respected trauma surgeons in the country, Dr. Hendricks had been my mentor for the past 3 years as I'd worked toward board certification in emergency surgery. What she was doing at a Martinez family reunion was anyone's guess, but I had a sinking feeling I was about to find out. The thing is, Uncle Bob was saying, building toward his annual crescendo, Miguel represents everything that's wrong with his generation. No ambition, no drive, no understanding of what it takes to build something meaningful. He's perfectly content to be ordinary. I don't think there's anything wrong with ordinary work, Sophia said diplomatically. Someone has to staff the clinics and hospitals. Sure, Uncle Bob agreed, but those are jobs for people without options. Miguel had options. He went to college, got decent grades. He could have done something with his life if he'd applied himself. Dr. Hendricks had gotten out of her car and was walking toward our gathering, her expression curious as she took in the scene. She was a small woman in her 50s with silver hair and the kind of quiet authority that made hospital administrators nervous and medical students stand up straighter. The point is, Uncle Bob continued, oblivious to the approaching interruption, Miguel here is 32 years old with nothing to show for it. Still renting some tiny apartment, driving a car that should have been replaced 5 years ago, working for hourly wages instead of building equity. Hourly wages, Derek repeated with a sympathetic shake of his head. That's rough, man. Have you considered going back to school? Maybe getting some kind of certification that could lead to better opportunities. Or starting your own practice, suggested Aunt Carmen. Even if it's just part-time at first. You have to think about retirement, Miguel. Social Security isn't going to be enough. Dr. Hendricks had reached the edge of our family circle and was listening to this conversation with growing amusement. I caught her eye and nodded slightly, a greeting she returned with a small smile that suggested she was enjoying the show. What Miguel needs, Uncle Bob announced with the authority of someone who'd solved complex problems before, is a reality check. He needs to understand that life isn't going to hand him success on a silver platter. He needs to start making adult decisions about his future. Bob Martinez? Dr. Hendricks spoke up for the first time, her voice cutting through Uncle Bob's speech with surgical precision. Uncle Bob turned toward her with the confident smile he reserved for attractive women, especially those who appeared to be successful professionals. That's right. Bob Martinez, Martinez Construction. And you are? Dr. Patricia Hendricks, she said, extending her hand. I believe you work for Caldwell Development Group? Uncle Bob's chest puffed up with pride. That's right. Senior Project Manager. Been with the company for 8 years now. We've built half the commercial developments in this city. I know, Dr. Hendricks said. Your company handled the renovation of our surgical wing last year. Excellent work. Uncle Bob practically glowed with the professional recognition. Thank you. We take pride in delivering quality construction services. Are you in the market for any development work? Actually, Dr. Hendricks said, turning to look directly at me, I came here looking for Dr. Martinez. I hope you don't mind the interruption, but we have a situation at the hospital that requires his immediate attention. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear traffic from the highway half a mile away. Dr. Martinez? Uncle Bob repeated slowly, his confident smile beginning to falter. Dr. Miguel Martinez, Dr. Hendricks confirmed, still looking at me. Chief Resident in Trauma Surgery at Metropolitan General. I apologize for interrupting your family gathering, but we have a multi-car accident coming in, and I need our best trauma surgeon available. Uncle Bob's face had gone through several color changes, settling on a pale gray that matched the concrete picnic tables. "Chief resident," he said weakly. "Chief resident," Dr. Hendricks confirmed. "Though not for much longer. Miguel's board certification exam is next month, and once he passes, which he'll be joining our attending staff as a full trauma surgeon." The family circle had gone completely silent. Derek's mouth was hanging open. Aunt Carmen was staring at me like I'd suddenly grown wings. Sophia looked like she was trying to solve a complex math problem in her head. "Dr. Martinez has been my top resident for 3 years," Dr. Hendricks continued, apparently oblivious to the devastation she was causing to Uncle Bob's worldview. "Exceptional surgical skills, outstanding patient outcomes, natural leadership abilities. The hospital board approved his attending position last month." "Attending position," Uncle Bob repeated in a voice that sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Starting salary is $385,000 annually," Dr. Hendricks said matter-of-factly. "Plus surgical bonuses, research stipends and profit sharing. Should work out to around $450,000 his first year, assuming normal case volume." $450,000. The number hit the assembled family like a physical force. Uncle Bob's annual income from his construction job was probably around $80,000. Derek's law practice might generate $150,000 in a good year. I was looking at first-year earnings that exceeded what most of them would make in 5 years. "Miguel," Dr. Hendricks said, checking her watch, "I know this is family time, but the accident victims are being airlifted to our trauma center. Can you meet me there in 30 minutes? "Of course," I said, finally finding my voice. "I'll follow you over." "Excellent. And Miguel?" She paused, looking around at my still stunned family. "Bring your surgical bag. From what dispatch is telling us, this is going to require our best work." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Uncle Bob. "Mr. Martinez, I hope you understand how proud you should be of your nephew. Dr. Martinez is one of the most promising trauma surgeons I've worked with in 25 years of practice. The hospital considers him a tremendous asset." With that, she walked back toward her car, leaving behind a family gathering that had been fundamentally transformed in the span of 5 minutes. The silence stretched on until Derek finally spoke. "You're a trauma surgeon." "Yes," I said simply. "A trauma surgeon," he repeated. "Like you operate on people. In emergencies." "That's what trauma surgeons do," I confirmed. Uncle Bob was still staring at me like I'd revealed I was actually an alien wearing a Miguel costume. "But you said you worked at a clinic." "I do work at a clinic," I said. "The trauma clinic at Metropolitan General Hospital. It's attached to one of the busiest emergency departments in the state." "You said you made 30 or 40,000 a year," Aunt Carmen added weakly. "No," I corrected gently. "Uncle Bob said I made 30 or 40,000 a year." I just didn't contradict him. The distinction was important. For the past several years, I'd listened to my family make assumptions about my career, my income, and my life choices without feeling the need to correct their misconceptions. It had been easier to let them believe what they wanted to believe than to constantly defend my decisions. "But why?" Sophia asked, her voice small and confused. "Why didn't you tell us you were a doctor?" It was a fair question and one I'd been expecting for years. "Because you never asked," I said simply. "In all the years of family reunions, birthday parties, and holiday gatherings, not one of you ever asked what kind of work I did at the hospital. You assumed I was an orderly or a technician or a clerk, and you built your understanding of my life around those assumptions." The accuracy of that statement was undeniable. They'd spent years discussing my career limitations without ever inquiring about my actual career. "I tried to tell you once," I continued. 3 years ago when I first started my residency. I mentioned that I was beginning surgical training, and Uncle Bob laughed and said that watching operations on TV didn't count as medical training. Uncle Bob winced at the memory. I could see him trying to recall the conversation, probably remembering his dismissive response to what he'd assumed was another one of my unrealistic fantasies. "You just let us think you were failing," Derek said, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and accusation. "I let you think what you wanted to think," I corrected. "Your assumptions about my life said more about your expectations than about my reality." "But the apartment," Aunt Carmen said desperately, grasping for some way to make sense of the situation. You said you lived in a tiny apartment. I do live in a tiny apartment, I confirmed. A one-bedroom place about 6 blocks from the hospital. It's small because I'm rarely home, and when I am home I'm usually sleeping. I don't need much space. But you could afford something bigger, Sophia said. With that kind of salary you could afford a house. A really nice house. I could, I agreed. But I'm saving for other things. What other things? This was the conversation I'd been avoiding for years, not because I was ashamed of my goals, but because I'd learned that my family's idea of success didn't align with my own priorities. Medical school left me with $200,000 in student loans, I explained. I've been living modestly so I can pay those off as quickly as possible. Once they're gone, I'm planning to start a free clinic in the underserved part of town. A free clinic, Uncle Bob repeated, his voice flat with incomprehension. Most trauma surgery happens to people who can't afford trauma surgeons, I said. Motorcycle accidents, workplace injuries, domestic violence cases. I want to establish a clinic that can provide emergency surgical care regardless of insurance status. But why? Derek asked. I mean, that's noble and everything, but why give up the income? You could make millions in private practice. Because saving lives is more important than accumulating wealth, I said simply. The statement hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Martinez family had always believed about success and achievement. They'd spent decades measuring worth in terms of income, possessions, and social status. The idea that someone might deliberately choose service over wealth was foreign to their understanding of rational decision-making. Miguel, Uncle Bob said slowly, I owe you an apology. A really big apology. You owe me respect, I corrected. Apologies are nice, but what I want is for my family to stop making assumptions about my life and start asking questions about what I'm actually doing. Dr. Martinez, Derek said, testing out the title. I still can't believe you're a surgeon. I mean, I can believe it now, but it's hard to reconcile with your assumptions about who I was supposed to be, I finished. Yeah. I looked around at my family, people I loved despite their flaws, people who'd spent years underestimating me because I didn't fit their definition of success. The revelation about my career wouldn't immediately change our relationship dynamics, but it was a start. There's something else you should know, I said, pulling out my phone and checking a text message that had just arrived. The attending position Dr. Hendricks mentioned? It comes with additional responsibilities. What kind of responsibilities? Aunt Carmen asked nervously, probably bracing for another revelation that would further upend her understanding of my life. I'll be directing the trauma surgery residency program, I said. Teaching the next generation of emergency surgeons. It's a significant honor. Most doctors wait years for that kind of appointment. Teaching other doctors, Sophia said wonderingly. You're going to be teaching other doctors. I already teach other doctors, I said. I've been supervising junior residents and medical students for the past 2 years. It's one of the most rewarding parts of the job. My phone buzzed again with another message from the hospital. The accident victims were arriving and they needed me there immediately. I have to go, I said, standing up and grabbing my keys. People's lives are depending on the surgical team being ready when they arrive. Of course, Uncle Bob said quickly. Go save lives. We'll talk more later. As I walked toward my Honda Civic, which suddenly looked less like a symbol of failure and more like practical transportation for someone who spent most of his time at work, I could hear my family beginning to process what they'd learned. A trauma surgeon, I heard Derek saying to Sophia. Our cousin Miguel is a trauma surgeon. Who's going to make $450,000 a year, Sophia replied. Plus bonuses. And he's been living in that tiny apartment by choice, Aunt Carmen added. To pay off student loans faster. I got in my car and started the engine, glancing back at the family gathering one more time. Uncle Bob was sitting heavily on a picnic bench, staring at the ground like he was trying to solve a difficult puzzle. The rest of my relatives were clustered in small groups, probably comparing notes on every conversation they'd ever had with me and wondering what other assumptions they'd gotten wrong. As I drove toward the hospital, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. Dr. Hendricks' voice filled the car. Miguel, I hope I didn't cause too much family drama back there. Nothing that wasn't a long time coming, I said. But I'm curious, how did you know where to find me? Your cousin Sophia. she said with a laugh. She handles social media for that new restaurant downtown, the one where I had lunch yesterday. She was posting pictures from your family reunion and I recognized you in the background. I figured it was a good opportunity to meet your family. And the multi-car accident? Very real, unfortunately. 3 vehicles, 7 victims, 2 in critical condition. We'll need your best work today. On my way, I said, switching into the professional mindset that had carried me through years of medical training and residency. Family drama would have to wait. People needed surgery and I was one of the few people in the city qualified to provide it. 20 minutes later, I was scrubbed in and standing over a trauma patient, my hands working to repair damage that would have been fatal without immediate surgical intervention. This was what I'd trained for, what I'd sacrificed for, what I'd chosen over the conventional markers of success my family valued. 6 hours later, after successfully completing 3 emergency surgeries and stabilizing 4 other patients, I finally had a chance to check my phone. I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from various family members. The messages ranged from simple expressions of amazement, "I can't believe you're a doctor," to more complex attempts to process the day's revelations. "Mom wants to know if you need help furnishing a bigger apartment." But the one that mattered most was from Uncle Bob. "Miguel, I spent years talking about building something meaningful with your life. Today I learned you've been doing exactly that and I was too blind to see it. I'm proud of you and I'm sorry it took me so long to say that." I smiled and put the phone away. Tomorrow I'd call him back and we'd start rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect rather than misplaced assumptions. But tonight I was going home to my tiny apartment, proud of the lives I'd saved and satisfied with the choices I'd made. Sometimes the most meaningful success isn't visible to people who only know how to measure wealth and status. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well even when nobody notices you're doing it.
The Oakwood Country Club's annual charity gala was in full swing, crystal chandeliers reflecting off designer gowns and family heirlooms. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, sipping sparkling water while watching my sister Victoria hold court among the city's elite. And then, she laughed, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Amanda tried to apply for membership. Can you imagine? A real estate agent thinking she belongs at Oakwood? Her little circle of socialites tittered appropriately. I checked my watch. 20 minutes until the announcement. Speaking of belonging, Victoria's voice carried deliberately across the marble floor. "Catherine, darling, what are you doing here? This event is for members only." I turned to face my sister, taking in her perfect updo and custom-made gown. I was invited. By whom? Her smile was pure venom. Surely not as a potential member. This club is for successful people, dear. Not. She gestured vaguely at my simple black dress. Whatever it is you do. If she only knew what I really did. What I'd been quietly building while she played society queen. Actually, I kept my voice soft. Mr. Bradford invited me. Something about an important announcement. Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. William Bradford, the board president? I checked my watch again. 10 minutes. Don't be ridiculous. William would never. She stopped as the man himself approached us. Catherine, there you are. William Bradford, 70 years old and still sharp as a tack, smiled warmly. Everything's prepared. Shall we? Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a designer fish. William, what's going on? All in good time, my dear. He offered me his arm. Catherine? I took it, allowing him to lead me toward the podium at the front of the ballroom. Behind us, I could hear Victoria hissing to her friends, trying to make sense of what was happening. The microphone feedback cut through the elegant murmur of conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, William's voice commanded attention. Thank you all for coming to our annual charity gala. Before we begin the auction, I have an important announcement regarding the future of Oakwood Country Club. The room stilled. These people had been members for generations. Change wasn't something they welcomed. As you know, our club has faced certain financial challenges in recent years. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that those challenges have been resolved, thanks to our new owner. The whispers started immediately. Oakwood had been member-owned for a century. Please join me in welcoming the new owner of Oakwood Country Club, Ms. Catherine Pierce. The silence was absolute. I stepped forward, accepting the microphone from William while scanning the crowd. There, Victoria, her face drained of color, gripping her champagne glass like it might save her. Thank you, William. I smiled at the assembled crowd. I know change can be unsettling, especially for an institution as storied as Oakwood. But I assure you, the club's traditions will be respected. I paused. Most of them, anyway. Victoria pushed through the crowd. This is impossible. You can't afford. You don't have the resources. I finished for her. Actually, sister dear, I have quite a lot of resources. While you were busy planning charity galas, I was building an investment empire. 15 hotels, 12 residential developments, and now, I gestured around the ballroom, 1 historic country club. You're lying, she whispered. I nodded to William, who distributed folders to the board members. The transfer documents are complete. The staff has already been notified. And the first change, I turned back to Victoria, will be our membership criteria. Success, it turns out, isn't just about who you know or what you wear. You can't do this, she stepped forward. Daddy was a member here for 40 years. Yes, he was. And now his younger daughter owns it. Funny how life works out, isn't it? The room had erupted into confused murmurs. These people had never seen me as anything but Victoria's quiet sister, the one who missed social events because she was working. They were about to learn what that work had built. Oh, and Victoria? I added, just loud enough for her circle to hear. About your membership. We should talk. I'm reviewing all applications personally now. I stepped down from the podium, accepting congratulations from stunned board members while Victoria stood frozen in place. My phone buzzed. A message from my real estate director. Hotel deal in Paris is done. You now own the building next to Victoria's favorite shopping spot. I smiled, typing back. Perfect. Next target. The marina where she docks her husband's boat. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just buying what they value. It's showing them that while they were busy judging, you were busy building an empire. And I was just getting started. The morning after the gala, I sat in my new office at Oakwood, reviewing membership files while the city's elite blew up my phone. Victoria had apparently spent the night calling everyone she knew, trying to challenge the sale. Miss Pierce? My new assistant, Margaret, appeared at the door. Your sister is here. Again, and your father just arrived. Send them both in. I closed the membership folder I'd been reviewing, coincidentally Victoria's. They'd burst in like a storm. Victoria in designer casual wear, Dad in his golf clothes, both red-faced and bristling. Catherine Ann Pierce. Dad started, using my full name like I was still 12. What the hell do you think you're doing? Running my business. I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. Please sit. This isn't a business, Victoria spat. This is our club, our legacy. Was your club? I corrected gently. The papers are signed. The money's transferred. Oakwood is mine. Dad leaned forward. Where did you even get that kind of money? Would you like to see my portfolio? I opened my laptop, turning it toward them. 15 luxury hotels, 12 residential developments, 3 marinas. Well, 4 now that I've acquired Blue Harbor. Victoria's face went white. Blue Harbor? But George's boat. We'll need a new berth, yes, unless you'd like to discuss a long-term lease. I smiled. My rates are quite reasonable. For now. This is spite, she hissed. Pure spite. No, Victoria. This is business. I stood up, walking to the window overlooking the golf course. While you were planning parties and judging people's worth by their clothes, I was building something. Something bigger than your little social circle could ever imagine. Daddy. Victoria turned to our father. Do something. But Dad was still staring at my laptop screen, at the numbers that showed exactly how much his quiet younger daughter was worth. Catherine. These properties. How long? 10 years. I turned back to them. 10 years of being the sister who was too busy working to attend your precious social events. 10 years of listening to Victoria mock my choices while I was quietly buying up half the luxury properties in 3 states. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I sat back down. Or would you have dismissed it, like you dismissed everything else I did that didn't fit your country club vision of success? Victoria stood up suddenly. I want to speak to William Bradford. The board won't stand for this. The board already voted. Unanimously. I pulled out another folder. They were quite enthusiastic about my plans for modernization and the capital injection I'm providing. Your plans? Dad's voice was weak. New spa facilities, updated golf course, expanded marina. I paused. Oh, and a complete review of the membership criteria. No more automatic legacy admissions. You can't. Victoria practically screamed. My children, their children, will need to qualify on their own merits. I opened her membership folder. Speaking of which, we should discuss your annual review. Dad stood up, putting a hand on Victoria's arm. Catherine, please. Whatever point you're trying to make has already been made. I closed the folder. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the architectural team about the new wellness center. This isn't over, Victoria promised, her voice shaking. Actually, it is. I pressed the intercom. Margaret, please show them out and send in the architects. After they left, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom, dozens of texts from Victoria's social circle, and 1 message from my investment director. Paris hotel renovation approved. Starting next week. I smiled, typing back. Perfect timing. Victoria usually shops there during Fashion Week. Because sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about building an empire so vast they can't ignore it. And every property, every acquisition, every business deal was another brick in that empire. My phone buzzed again. William Bradford. Board loved the renovation plans. Victoria's friends are panicking about membership reviews. Good, I replied. They should be. Because I wasn't just changing a country club. I was changing the rules of their entire game. And I was just getting started. 6 months later, Oakwood Country Club had transformed. The new spa gleamed with marble and glass. The golf course had been redesigned by a world-renowned architect, and the membership roster had changed dramatically. I sat in my office, reviewing the latest applications. Amanda, the real estate agent Victoria had mocked, was now our newest member, her successful agency and charitable work easily meeting our new merit-based criteria. Meanwhile, half of Victoria's social circle had failed their membership reviews. Miss Pierce? Margaret appeared at my door. Your mother's here. I looked up, surprised. Mom had been conspicuously absent since the takeover. Sent her in. She entered tentatively, looking elegant, but uncomfortable. Catherine, the club looks amazing. Thank you. Please sit. She perched on the edge of the chair, clutching her designer handbag. Victoria's not doing well. I heard. Losing her membership must have been difficult. It's not just that. Mom shifted. Her friends, her social standing, everything's changed. And now with the Paris Hotel. I smiled slightly. My renovation of the hotel next to her favorite shopping district had effectively ended her annual Fashion Week trips. The noise and construction made the whole area unbearable. Business is business, Mom. Is it? She met my eyes. Or is this punishment? I leaned back, considering. Do you remember my college graduation? She frowned at the apparent non sequitur. Of course. Victoria was 2 hours late because she was hosting a club luncheon. Dad left early for a golf game. You spent the whole ceremony on the phone with your interior decorator. Catherine, I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in business and economics. I had 3 job offers from top investment firms. None of you even asked about it. She had the grace to look ashamed. We should have. Yes, you should have. I stood up, walking to the window. But you were all too busy with this place, the parties, the social status, the perfect country club life. So I built my own life, my own success, my own empire. And now, you're using it to hurt your sister. No, I turned back to her. I'm using it to show her, all of you, what real success looks like. It's not about membership cards or social circles. It's about building something meaningful. By destroying what matters to her, by changing the rules. I sat down again. The new Oakwood is thriving. Membership is up. Our charitable giving has tripled. We've started a scholarship program for underprivileged youth. When was the last time Victoria's social circle did anything that actually mattered? Mom was quiet for a long moment. I saw the new membership list. Amanda Reynolds, the real estate agent, who built her agency from nothing and runs 3 homeless shelters. Yes. And Victoria could reapply if she meets the new criteria. Success, community involvement, actual achievements, rather than inherited status. Mom stood up slowly. You've changed everything. No, Mom. I just showed everyone what was always possible. I pulled out a folder. Here, your membership review is next week. I suggest you read the new criteria carefully. After she left, I walked down to the new spa complex. Members greeted me warmly, not with the fake social air of before, but with genuine respect. These were people who'd earned their place here, just as I had earned mine. My phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. I heard Mom came to see you. I want to talk. I typed back, my office. Tomorrow. Bring your CV and community service record. Because sometimes the biggest victory isn't in the taking, it's in the transforming. I hadn't just bought their precious club, I'd changed what it meant to belong. 1 year later, I stood at the podium during Oakwood's annual charity gala. The room looked different, more diverse, more accomplished, more real. Last year, I addressed the crowd. I stood here as the new owner. Some of you were shocked. Some were angry. Some predicted disaster. I paused, looking at Victoria in the back of the room. She'd earned her way back in, eventually, starting a foundation for educational equality and actually making a difference. But look at us now. Our membership is stronger than ever. our impact on the community is greater. We've proven that true success isn't about who you know or where you come from. It's about what you build, what you achieve, what you give back. After the speech, Victoria approached me. "You were right," she said quietly, "about everything." I nodded. "I know." I just never understood. While I was planning parties, you were planning. An empire, I finished. And now you understand what real success looks like. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning the game, it's changing it entirely. And as I looked out over my transformed club, at the new faces and new energy and new purpose, I knew I'd done exactly that. My phone buzzed one last time. My investment director. "Ready to start on the next acquisition?" I smiled, typing back, "Always." Because this was never about a country club. It was about showing them all what real power, real success, and real change looked like. And I was still just getting started. The Harrison family boardroom hadn't changed in 20 years. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same oil painting of my grandfather looking down at us with stern disapproval. I sat quietly at the far end, watching my father pace the room like he owned every molecule of air in it. Which technically, he did. "Harrison Technologies needs fresh blood," he announced, hands clasped behind his back. "New investment, new ideas, new leadership for the next generation." My older brother, Marcus, straightened his tie, already smirking. My younger sister, Sophia, tapped her manicured nails against her tablet, pretending to take notes. I kept still, my proposal folder unopened in front of me. "That's why," Dad continued, "I'm opening up shares in the company. Family only, of course. But," he paused for effect, "you'll need to bring something to the table. We're talking serious investment. 7 figures minimum." Marcus raised his hand like we were still in grade school. "I've already liquidated my tech stocks, Dad. I'm ready to put in $2 million. "Excellent." Dad beamed. "That's the kind of initiative we need." Sophia jumped in. "James and I have discussed it. We can match that from our hedge fund returns." "Perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Real money, real commitment." Then all eyes turned to me. Alexandra Harrison, the middle child, the quiet one, the one who'd walked away from the family business 5 years ago to find herself. At least, that's how they described it. I cleared my throat. "I'd like to present a proposal for modernizing our supply chain. And, Alex," Dad cut me off, "we need actual capital, not ideas. How much can you invest?" I met his gaze steadily. "My current liquid assets are around $800,000. The room filled with poorly concealed snickers. Marcus actually rolled his eyes. "Oh, sweetie," Sophia cooed with fake sympathy. "This is a big kids game. Maybe sit this one out?" Dad's face hardened. "We need someone with actual money to invest, Alexandra. Not whatever you've scraped together from your little consulting work." I didn't tell them about the other $50 million in assets I'd accumulated, or about the negotiations I'd been quietly conducting with Summit Industries, Harrison Tech's biggest competitor. I just nodded, gathered my things, and stood up. "I understand. Thank you for the opportunity." "Alex," Dad called as I reached the door. "Maybe in a few years, when you've built up some real wealth." I closed the door quietly behind me. 2 weeks later, I sat in my real office, the top floor of a downtown high-rise, watching the morning news unfold on multiple screens. The headline scrolled across each one. BUREING, Summit Industries, N-N-O-U-N-C-E. N-N-E-U-O-Lumini-ear-ship. My phone started buzzing immediately. First Marcus, then Sophia, then a stream of notifications from family members and business contacts. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the live feed from Harrison Technologies' lobby security camera. Amazing what access you can get when you own a company's main competitor. Dad had just walked in, his usual coffee in hand. He stopped at the reception desk to check messages, glancing up at the lobby TV where the story was playing. I watched as my professional headshot filled the screen, followed by the announcement. Summit Industries proud to announce new CEO and majority shareholder, Alexander Harrison. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. His face went from red to white to red again as he fumbled for his phone. I let his call go to voicemail. Then I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Summit's board. Ladies and gentlemen, as discussed in our previous meetings, Phase 1 of our expansion plan begins today. The first target, Harrison Technologies' main semiconductor contract with Maxwell Corp. They won't see us coming. They never did. Best regards, Alexander Harrison, CEO, Summit Industries. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city skyline. In the distance, I could see Harrison Technologies' headquarters, the building I'd grown up dreaming of running someday. Now I had something better, the power to show them exactly what they'd dismissed. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marcus. What the hell, Alex? Summit? Are you trying to destroy this family? I typed back. No, dear brother. I'm trying to show it what real money looks like. Then I turned off my phone and called my assistant. Sarah, please inform Summit's PR team we're ready for Phase 2. And get me Maxwell Corp's CEO on the line. Right away, Ms. Harrison. Oh, and your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you. I smiled. Tell security to escort him out. Remind him that as CEO of a competing company, he'll need to schedule any meetings through proper channels. And if he resists, take his picture. We'll need it for the restraining order I'll be filing this afternoon. I stood up, straightening my blazer, the same one I'd worn to that family meeting 2 weeks ago, the one they'd barely noticed because they were too busy counting their own money to see I had more than all of them combined. My office phone lit up. Maxwell Corp CEO on line 1 for you, Ms. Harrison. I picked up the receiver, my voice calm and clear. John, Alexander Harrison here. Let's talk about your future with Summit Industries. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. And I was just getting started. The next morning, Summit Industries stock opened 12% higher. Harrison Technologies dropped 8% in the first hour of trading. I watched both numbers from my private conference room while reviewing the Maxwell Corp contract, now exclusively Summit's, thanks to a late-night negotiation that cut Harrison Tech out of their biggest semiconductor deal. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Harrison, your sister Sophia is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but let her in. I closed my laptop. This should be interesting. Sophia burst through the door in designer heels and barely contained rage. What are you doing, Alex? First Summit. Now Maxwell? Are you trying to destroy everything Dad built? I gestured to the chair across from me. Please sit. You're making my security team nervous. Screw your security team. But she sat anyway, smoothing her silk blouse with trembling hands. Marcus is having a meltdown. Dad hasn't slept. Mom keeps crying about family loyalty. Fascinating. I pulled up a document on my tablet. Speaking of loyalty, let's discuss Harrison Tech's new partnership with Vision Electronics. The one you and Marcus pushed through last quarter. She froze. How do you know about that? I know everything, Safia, including the fact that Vision is 3 months away from bankruptcy. Their financials are a house of cards, and you tied our family company to them because their CEO promised you and Marcus personal kickbacks. That's not. I have the offshore account records. I turned the tablet toward her. Would you like to see them? The color drained from her face. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Summit's forensic accounting team is very thorough. In fact, they're preparing a full report for the SEC right now. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Family? I leaned forward. Was it family when you and Marcus convinced Dad I wasn't worth including in strategy meetings? When you mocked my little consulting work while I was building a billion-dollar portfolio? When you systematically pushed me out of every decision because you thought I wasn't smart enough, rich enough, or ruthless enough to play in your league? She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. What do you want? Simple. Harrison Tech cuts all ties with Vision Electronics immediately. You and Marcus resign from the board, citing personal reasons. In return, those financial records never see the light of day. That's blackmail. No, dear sister, that's business. I opened my laptop again. You have until 5 p.m. to decide. After that, the SEC gets an anonymous tip. Dad will never agree to this. Dad doesn't have a choice. Summit now owns 30% of Harrison Tech's supplier network. One phone call from me, and your production lines stop tomorrow. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the sister you should have been paying attention to. I pressed the intercom. Sarah, please show Ms. Harrison out. And send in my M and a team. We have a busy afternoon ahead. After Safia left, I pulled up the family photo from last Christmas. The last time we'd all been together. Me in the background, quiet, watching, planning. Them in the front, loud, confident, completely unaware that I was about to change everything. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Whatever you're planning, stop. We can talk about this. I typed back. Like you talked about the Vision Electronics deal. Check your email. You have 4 hours. Then I opened the file marked Phase 3 and began reviewing the next step in Summit's expansion. By the time my M and a team arrived, I had already identified 3 more Harrison Tech contracts ready for acquisition. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about showing them exactly who they'd underestimated. And I was just getting warmed up. The afternoon news would announce Summit's latest acquisition, a small but crucial chip manufacturer that supplied 40% of Harrison Tech's components. Dad would see it during his usual 3 p.m. coffee break, the same coffee he dropped this morning. I smiled, imagining his reaction. Sometimes the quiet ones aren't quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're waiting for the perfect moment to speak. And my moment? It was just beginning. At exactly 4:58 p.m., 2 minutes before my deadline, the resignations hit my inbox. First Marcus, then Sophia, both citing personal reasons for leaving Harrison Technologies board. I forwarded them to my legal team without comment. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Alexandra. Dad's voice was rough, tired. We need to talk. My office. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring Mom. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I sat in my penthouse reviewing old family videos. Christmas mornings where my siblings' gifts dominated the frame while I opened books about business strategy. Board meetings where my raised hand was ignored. The day I graduated top of my class from business school, and they all left early because Marcus had a more important client dinner. I'd recorded everything, not for nostalgia, but for motivation. At 8:55 a.m. the next morning, they arrived. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Dad had traded his usual commanding stride for something closer to a shuffle. They sat across from me, two people who'd once seemed larger than life, now looking small against the backdrop of floor-to-ceiling windows. "The Vision Electronics deal is dead," Dad said without preamble. "And your siblings have resigned." "Yes, I know." I pulled up a presentation on the wall screen. "Now let's discuss Harrison Technology's future." "Our future?" Mom's voice cracked. "Alex, you're destroying us." "No, Mom. I'm saving you from them." I clicked to the first slide. Detailed documentation of Marcus and Sophia's kickback scheme. They were bleeding the company dry. Vision Electronics was just the start. I have evidence of at least 6 other deals where they took personal payments to push through contracts that hurt Harrison Tech. Dad's face went ashen. "That's impossible. We raised them better." "Did you?" "You raised them to believe money and power were everything. That the only way to win was to step on others. The only difference is, they turned those lessons against you too." I clicked through more slides, offshore accounts, secret meetings, forged documents. With each revelation, my parents seemed to shrink further into their chairs. "Why show us this?" Mom whispered. "Why not just let the SEC handle it?" Because despite everything, Harrison Technologies is still Grandpa's legacy. And unlike my dear siblings, I actually care about that. Dad looked up sharply. "What are you suggesting?" "A merger." I pulled up the final slide. Summit Industries and Harrison Technologies combine forces. Your technology, my market position. We could dominate the industry for the next 50 years. "You want to take over our company?" "No, Dad. I want to save it. But this time, on my terms." I laid out the details. A fair stock exchange, guaranteed positions for loyal employees, and a new board structure that would protect both companies' interests. And if we refuse, Dad's voice was quiet. "Then tomorrow morning, these documents go public. Harrison Tech's stock crashes. The SEC launches an investigation, and everything Grandpa built ends in scandal." Mom started crying softly. Dad just stared at his hands. "You have until noon to decide." I stood up. "Oh, and one more thing. I want the painting." "What painting?" Mom looked confused. "Grandpa's portrait from the boardroom. The one that watched me being ignored for 20 years. I think it's time he had a new view." At 11:58 a.m., they signed the merger agreement. By 1 p.m., the news had hit every major financial network. Historic MERGER, Summit, and Harrison Technologies joined forces. That evening, as maintenance crews hung Grandpa's portrait in my office, I received 3 text messages. From Sophia, "I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything." From Marcus, "This isn't over, Alex." From Mom, "We never saw you. I'm so sorry." I responded only to Mom. It's not about being seen anymore. It's about being heard. And now everyone's listening. 1 month later, I stood in the new combined boardroom of Summit Harrison Technologies. The company's stock had risen 40% since the merger. Our market share had doubled. And my siblings? Last I heard, they were trying to start a venture capital firm. Without access to Harrison Tech's resources or connections, they weren't having much success. My assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Harrison? The board is ready for your first meeting as CEO." I straightened my jacket and picked up my presentation folder, the same one I tried to show them at that family meeting that felt like a lifetime ago. "Oh, and your father is here. He says he'd like to sit in, if you'll allow it." I thought about it. Put him in the back. He can watch. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. And as I walked into that boardroom, past Grandpa's portrait now hanging behind my chair, I knew I'd done exactly that. "Good morning, everyone," I began, my voice clear and confident. "Let's talk about the future. Not just my future, or the company's future, but the future I'd built while they weren't watching. Because in the end, they were right about one thing. Business is about money and power. They just never expected me to have more of both than all of them combined." And as I started my presentation, I caught Dad's eye in the back of the room. For the first time in my life, he wasn't looking at me with disappointment or dismissal. He was looking at me with respect. Too little, too late. But exactly what I'd been working for all along.